I built this dream physique while only training in the gym 3 days a week and just eating virtually whatever I want. In this video, I'm going to go over a lot of the common misconceptions and myths which people have about fat loss and building muscle, which is really holding a lot of people back. A lot of these are promoted by the fitness industry and people online who just talk a lot of nonsense and actually don't understand a lot of the basic concepts of building muscle and fat loss and how simple and easy it actually is. So in this video, I'm going to go over the 5 most common misconceptions which I see in the fitness industry regarding these two topics. So the first myth is that if you want to look really good and you want to be lean, put on some muscle, you need to live in the gym. So people think that most bodybuilders and people who are in fantastic shape go to the gym 6-7 days a week and they spend 2 hours in the gym just to look like that, and that their life is going to suck. This is actually completely false, and a lot of times it's just an excuse which people make so that they don't need to go to the gym. The reality is that if you train 6-7 days a week, you're actually not going to put on as much muscle as someone who only trains 3 to 4 days a week. This is because you're bringing on far too much fatigue, you're overtraining, your body's going to wear out, and you're not giving yourself time to properly rest and recover. So this is good news if you're someone who doesn't have too much time to go to the gym, or you thought that in order to get into good shape, you needed to go 6-7 days a week. You can actually make a ton of muscle and actually make more muscle on just 3 to 4 days a week. So I've been running a 3-day split where I train upper body twice a week and lower body once a week. And I found that this is really optimized for me to increase the weight each time I go to the gym and to consistently, progressively overload with the amount of weight and stress that my muscles are under. This is because it gives your muscles a sufficient amount of time to actually recuperate and to actually recover throughout the week. So if you train every single day, when you go to the gym, your muscles aren't going to be fully recovered and you're not going to be able to optimize yourself to actually work out and to actually hit PRs, to get stronger and to build more muscle. Whereas if you actually took a few more rest days throughout the week and you give yourself the proper time for your body to rest, recover, to build that muscle again, then when you go to the gym, every time you're training, you're optimizing to just improve the strength and the muscle that you're going to be able to build in the gym. So it's important to remember the concept that you don't actually build muscle when you're in the gym. When you're in the gym, you're tearing down the muscle fibers and you're starting off the hypertrophy process. However, when you build muscle, it's outside of the gym. It's with proper sleep, proper dieting and nutrition, and proper rest and recovery. So this is a key essential component which you need on your bodybuilding journey. If you want to lose fat and you want to put on a ton of weight, stop going 6-7 days a week, because a lot of times all this excess training is actually just holding you back. It's going to backfire, it's going to bring on far too much fatigue, and it's just going to lead to you putting on a lot less muscle. So that's why overtraining and having to go to the gym 6-7 days a week to look in fantastic shape is a complete myth. If you can just nail down 3 solid workouts for 45 minutes to an hour each week, and you do this consistently, you're going to find that over time your strength is going to keep improving, and strength is the number 1 metric for building muscle. So the second myth is that high volume equals growth. So people think that going to the gym, if they're pumping out 12 to 15 reps, even 20 reps, that this is going to lead to them getting the most amount of muscle because it leads to the highest amount of pump and leads to getting swelling into your muscles. Whereas the reality is that getting the swelling into your muscles and actually chasing a pump when you're in the gym does not correlate to long-term muscle growth. What happens is you've kind of built like a temporary growth in muscle which isn't long lasting and isn't actually going to stay structurally long term. So if you actually just took 1 to 2 weeks off going to the gym, you would find that you're actually going to lose a lot of this muscle you've built up through high rep ranges, and your physique's going to start to look really flat, and it's going to look like you've been out of the gym for a longer period of time than you have been, just because you're not actually building like a dense, more sustainable physique. Also, another concept to go over is effective reps. So you actually only build muscle in the last 5 reps of each set. So if you're someone who's doing a lot of rep ranges and you're going 12, 15, 20 reps, you're literally wasting all this time building up to these effective reps where you actually build muscle. So these are the last 5 reps before you hit failure. And then when you get into these reps, you're actually on a lower weight, which is going to lead to less mechanical tension and less muscle growth. So instead of going high volume, I highly recommend going low volume with reverse pyramid training. So this is where for your first set, you load up and you go as heavy as you can, as long as you're between 4 to 6 rep range. So when you do this, what's going to happen is you're going to massively increase the amount of mechanical tension your muscles are under. And when you're going to hit those 5 effective reps immediately, and the amount of stress and tension you put on the muscle in these reps is going to be a lot higher because you're using a lot of a higher weight. This is different and this is a lot better because you're not bringing on fatigue from previous sets. You're not going to be tired. You're going to be fresh when you hit the highest weight. Then after this, I would just drop the weight a little bit and then I would go for maybe 6 to 8 reps, then do the same thing and then do 8 to 10 reps. So this is called reverse pyramid training and this is the most effective way to build muscle. You don't build muscle by having way too many reps and just going high volume and pumping out 20, 15 reps each time. It's by actually tapering this back and focusing on improving your strength, improving the amount of weight and stress that your muscles are under. This is what really builds a ton of muscle quick and fast and also leads to just having a more dense physique, which actually looks a lot nicer and is a lot more sustainable long term. So the next mistake which so many people make is they think that cardio is essential for fat loss. This leads to so many issues because people go more intense with the amount of cardio. They do a lot of sprints, running, jogging, things like Hydrox. They don't actually realize that all of these exercises induce a lot of hunger. This is because it actually increases your appetite massively when you do these intensive workouts. And the more intense they are, the more hungry you're going to be afterwards and the more your appetite is going to improve. So you don't actually need cardio to get into a weight loss program. Actually, if you want to burn fat, all you need to do is just be in a slight calorie deficit. This is where the amount of calories you're taking in is less than the amount of calories you're burning. So therefore, there's a net positive where you're burning more calories than you're consuming, and it's literally impossible for your body to not lose fat. So the reason why people struggle with this is because they think that they're in a calorie deficit when they aren't, and a lot of times it's because you're not accurately tracking your macros and your calories. So it's key to keep in mind when you're doing this that you should be tracking your calories, making sure you're aware of what you're eating. And if you can just go slightly below maintenance, you don't actually need any cardio at all, and you can lose fat effectively. One other point I'll make is that walking is a very effective tool which you should utilize. This is a moderate cardio exercise which actually doesn't induce any more hunger. So if you can implement 10 to 12,000 steps per day and you're in a slight calorie deficit of 1 to 200 calories, you're just going to burn fat so easily. You're going to make your life so much more easy for you. It's also a lot more sustainable and a lot more enjoyable long term. So the fourth myth is that your diet has to be super strict. You see a lot of people online, like fitness influencers, doctors, a lot of them are recommending these super strict extreme diets where you cut out a lot of fats, you cut out a ton of carbs. I've seen people talk about completely cutting these out entirely, talking about going on keto diets or carnivore diets. The problem with this is that if you cut out too many macronutrients like carbs or fats, you're going to be so low energy and you're going to be so hungry that even if you stick to this for 2 to 3 weeks, you're literally just torturing yourself. You're going to be in a low mood, you're going to have low motivation to do anything, and you're just not going to even feel excited to do anything, and life is just going to be so much less fun. Also, because you're starving yourself constantly all the time, it's just going to eventually build up too much hunger and you're going to completely give up and burn out on your diet. This is why 80% of people who lose a significant amount of fat gain it all back within 2 years. They go too extreme, it's not a sustainable system, and it's not going to work long term. So when you're dieting, you should ask yourself, is this sustainable and can I do this for 10 years? And if the answer is no, then you're just doing something which you're just completely guaranteed to fail in. You're not setting up a sustainable process where you can lose weight, and you're just guaranteed that you're going to put this weight back on. So instead of going extreme, I highly recommend balancing fats and balancing carbs and protein. This balanced diet is going to lead to you keeping your energy levels high. You're also going to starve off some of that hunger as well. You're not going to be completely hungry throughout the day, constantly really keen on getting your next meal in. You're just going to be able to really maintain a slight caloric deficit, and it's going to be a lot easier, a lot more enjoyable, and you're just going to be able to actually make it a lifestyle which you can stick to. So the fifth and final myth, which is arguably the most stupid one, is that bulking and cutting is the key to building on as much muscle as quickly as possible, and it's the best way to lead to muscle growth. The reason why bulking and then cutting is so inefficient is because after a certain extent, after you've hit a couple hundred calories above your maintenance levels, all of these excess calories are just going to fat. So above maybe 200 to 300 calories above maintenance, all of these excess calories aren't going to convert to muscle. You've already got all of the calories and all the nutrients you need to build your maximum output of muscle. So everything above this is just going directly into fat. So this is why when you see people who are dirty bulking all the time, they actually just put on a ton of fat and they actually really don't look good, and they don't feel good either because they've got high levels of fat. They're going to be more lethargic, they're going to feel tired all the time. And it's just really an unsustainable, unenjoyable way to live as well. So you put on all this fat, and what happens is your muscle growth is going to increase because you're hitting the gym constantly and you're putting on some muscle. But then what's going to happen is you're going to have to spend a ton of time cutting it all back and just losing all this excess fat that you've put on. So what happens with your muscle growth is that it just becomes stagnant and you're not going to create any muscle growth, or it actually dips and goes down because you have to be in a caloric deficit to actually lose all the fat you've put on. So a much more sustainable, effective practice is to just lean bulk. So if you constantly stay at 100 to 200 calories above maintenance or even at maintenance, you can actually just consistently keep building muscle, and your muscle growth is going to keep building up, and then you won't have to go through all this period of time where you have to cut down all this excess fat, which means your muscle growth is going to be stagnant and you're not going to build on any muscle. So if you just consistently stay 100 to 200 calories above maintenance, then virtually all of your macronutrients you're taking in are going to be converted to muscle if you're training 3 to 4 days a week. And your muscle growth is just going to completely just continue going up and continue rising. This is a lot better than someone who bulks and has muscle growth and has to cut down on the fat, and you go through these troughs and everything. And it's just much more sustainable long term, and you're going to put on a ton more muscle in the long run if you just keep it steady and you consistently lean bulk. Also, if you do go out extreme and you're bulking heavy, it's not even going to lead to any more muscle than someone who's lean bulking anyway. So there's literally just no point. So bulking and cutting, it's a very common concept which is thrown around in the fitness industry. It actually does not help you, and it's going to lead to less muscle overall than if you keep a healthy diet. You don't eat hundreds of calories above maintenance levels, you don't eat junk food, and you just keep it healthy and sustainable in a slight surplus.